Hi everyone, it's Simon from Higher Plane Games with a review of Persona 3 Dancing in Moonlight and Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight. They form part of the Endless Night collection with a download code for Persona 4, Dancing All Night as well. There's a lot of dancing at night in these games. And it also comes with some bonus DLC of a couple of extra songs, as well as a small little cover art book that is part of the actual packaging, so you can't take it out, it's part of the box. It's worthwhile noting though that these games all play exactly the same, nigh on, but just contain different songs for you to play the rhythm action game that is part of these Persona dancing games. The soundtrack comes from their individual Persona games. There's a couple of songs that cross over as DLC across the collection, which is fine. But essentially you are here for nostalgia and for button pressing, and that is all that you're here for, and sometimes that is quite fine. However, I was mildly disappointed with what the Persona 3 and the Persona 5 games had to offer in terms of overall content, but also structure of the games, particularly when you weigh it up against what Persona 4 Dancing All Night brought first time round. Persona 4 brought an entire story mode that came with it. It was almost like you would play for like 30-40 minutes of a visual novel to then unlock a couple of songs, which once you then cleared, you could then take out and play in the normal, like just playing around with dancing mode, and that's perfectly fine. For 3 and 5, which are part of these new collections and the new games, there is no story mode whatsoever. Instead, what you have is social segments, which are almost like skits, which you then chat to the character that's in question for this specific skit, answer a couple of questions of which they have no bearing on any conversation whatsoever, and then once that social situation is cleared, you'll unlock some costumes, some helps or challenge like variations that you can put on to make the game easier or harder for you. And some costumes or accessories, and that's about it. So there is no story mode. The game outwardly says at the beginning, "This is just stupid, come and dance," which is perfectly fine. But I did feel like that was a complete letdown from the real big story mode that came out from Persona 4, which admittedly was quite long, I guess. But it's not just that, it's the quality of writing that's quite poor in Persona 3 and Persona 5 dancing as well. So I found none of the skits to be funny or interesting. I found them quite basic. I was not engaged in any of it whatsoever. On to the rhythm side of the games then, having been very disappointed with the story side. And the first thing that's worth noting is the amount of day one DLC that's out there. They're already charging another 16 quid for loads of accessories and another 20 quid for a load of extra downloadable songs. Which initially I was like, oh, that'll be fine. I'm sure there's plenty in the game. And there is, but it feels less than what was there in Persona 4. And nothing gets my goat out than like basically doubling your game with day one DLC. I'm not impressed with that. The rhythm game itself is also quite basic, but in a good way, but also a bad way, and I'll try and explain myself as I go around this. So you have 6 buttons that you need to press, and they go round the controller just like they did in the original one around the Vita, which is fine. So you've got triangle, circle, X on the with your right hand, up, left, and down on the D-pad with your left hand. And those buttons work really, really nicely and well. Then there's some way you'll need to, if it comes up with a DD, then you'll have to like do a double hit, not for double Ds. And then there'll be green buttons that will come down, and that will always be that you need to press and hold. Quite often there's like 2 of those, and if there is 2 buttons you need to press together, it will have like a band between them. Very Project Diva-like. When Project Diva Arcade come out, that was kind of how it would tell you that you'd need to do double hits there. And what I also appreciate is that because it's all coming from the centre out to the sides of the screen, there's a ring round everything that's coming out. So if you've not quite clocked what's coming and you need to time it properly, that does really help you out, that ring. The awkward part of it, though, is that you'll also get rings flying out from the centre, which are scratches, and these will hit off what's called a fever mode, which allows a second, sometimes a third person to come and join you in your dance, and like have like a little extra mode where you can get some bonus points. It will also save your combo if you don't quite get perfect or great hits, and you just get a good one. So there's advantages to kind of hitting these rings that come out. The scratches are entirely optional unless you turn the modifier on to allow that to be part of your combo. But it makes the screen really, really busy, and it gets mega confusing if you don't try and do them, because then your brain hasn't quite switched on or off what you should and shouldn't be doing, and it makes it super confusing. The other real problem with this game is basically the way how the user interface is laid out, and everything goes around to the edges of the screen. If you're playing on a big TV, it's actually quite difficult to judge and spot everything that's coming out from the centre to the outside. And that is really interesting, because you won't have that problem on the PlayStation Vita, because you're looking at the whole screen in front of you and you'll just be able to see where it's all coming out to the edge of the screen. Now, I play on a 42-inch LCD TV, and I'm not like with my head splattered at the front of it, but what I found to make my combos easier was that I had to move further away from the screen, because my head was in the centre and I wasn't quite clocking at the edges of my vision where everything was going, and particularly when you start unlocking like the all-star difficulty and you're going for the harder levels. Actually understanding what comes first is really, really crucial, particularly when you've got rings screaming out going scratch me, scratch me, scratch me all the way through. So actually you need to like step far away and almost turn your TV into like Vita screen so that it's small enough so that you can actually see everything that's going on. It's weird. I'd have thought it wouldn't have been an issue, because it wasn't when I played Super Beat Sonic, which has got the same type of layout of screen where everything's kind of around the edges, but it's slightly further in from the edges, whereas with these Persona games they're not. So yeah, I just found that super interesting, that I was really struggling with the UI, and I'm not able to get nearly as good a combos on this game as I would do on the original on the Vita, like when I'm playing Persona 4 Dancing All Night, that kind of thing. So I just think that's a really fascinating issue with scaling up a rhythm game. I've been quite negative in this review, but I also found that the music in general wasn't nearly as good as Persona 4 Dancing All Night. Some of the remixes are absolutely superb, but it's the remixes that carry the general music experience rather than the originals themselves. And there's something really weird about the mixing of this game as well, as if all the bass guts have been pulled out of all of the remixes, because it's supposed to be like a thumping club beat with some of these remixes, but they all feel a bit like tinny, as if someone has purposely filtered out some of the bass and made it almost play not quite radio-like, but it's starting to get that way. And so when I want to like have a proper thumper, because that would really help with the rhythm, because some of these songs, the buttons aren't necessarily following the rhythm that I feel like it should be, having played enough rhythm games. And so it ends up being like, I'm having to visually feel the beat, not feel the beat through the music. And that also feels a little bit awkward. Yes, you can play around with some of the sound settings to boost the music up, but it still feels gutless because there's no bass pumping behind any of it. So yeah, I have to say, I pre-ordered this collection, mega excited, because I really did enjoy Persona 4 Dancing All Night. But Persona 4 Dancing All Night is clearly the best of the three. Then possibly 5 over 3, but they're so identical that it just, yeah. It's just down to personal song preference as to what type of things that you prefer. But I found that the remixes in 3, whilst fine, and particularly the ones where they brought in people who are more known from the Konami Sound Club, and Namco actually as well. So it's people that have done like previous Tekken games or Zone of Enders, that kind of stuff. And Sasakuri.uk from the Vocaloid world. They bring out some proper good remixes, but the rest feel quite close to home and not necessarily like fully pumping beans. So yeah, I'm disappointed. And I've realised I've been quite negative in this review. I have still enjoyed my time with the Persona dancing games. I should really stress that. They are still fun, but just not as fun as I hoped that they would be. And for someone that loves a rhythm game, it's not often that I get bored playing them, but I felt quite bored by the time I'd gone round all of the songs and tried them out on a couple of difficulty levels. And my god, the writing for those social skits is dreadful. Like cringeworthy and very slow. So be prepared to have to sit and suffer through some of that, no matter how much nostalgia you've got for your old characters coming back. Yeah, sorry, not El Matador, I'm afraid. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that was informative. I will probably grab the DLC when it's cheaper. I feel a bit stumped. I've paid a lot of money for this collection and feel a little bit meh that that's all there at day one and I don't have the full package. And yeah, enjoy. I'm sure there'll be some gameplay on this channel for it to be demonetized soon. Bye for now. This channel is just one of my many projects that cover games, music and film. If you enjoy any of these and would consider supporting me to develop further in the future, you can do so by visiting patreon.com/Satorimon. Thank you for your time and for watching the video.